Alright, I request all of you to kindly stay back on the stage for just another minute. To all the panelists who were there, just another minute. We do have a token of appreciation for all of you. So can we get the hampers? And thank you so much for sharing your valuable insights with all of us. Yep. Once again, let's have a huge round of applause for all our wonderful panelists, and congratulations to everyone for this. We do have our lovely hampers from Estuary Water for everyone out there. Yep. Once again, thank you so much everyone, and many, many congratulations. Thank you, sir. All right, ladies and gentlemen, before proceeding to the next session, I do have a very special announcement for all of you here. So two industry leaders have come together to create something truly remarkable. Spiritz Magazine and News9 have officially joined hands to form an exclusive and powerful partnership for helping the alcobev industry. This collaboration is fantastic news for all of you, because now you have an extraordinary opportunity to amplify your real products on News9 Plus, the world's first news OTT platform, which has earned the title of the Netflix of the news world. And thanks to its world-class content production, exceptional user experience, and cutting-edge interface, Spiritz will curate and manage content, serving as the knowledge partner for all the OTT series planned under this partnership. So let's have a huge round of applause. It's a wonderful news for all of us out there. And to make this even more exciting, the Spiritz Magazine has recently commissioned an exclusive OTT series, everyone, named the Indian Single Malt Whiskey Saga, and it will soon be available on stream on News9 Plus. So we can't wait for you all to experience the incredible storytelling and craftsmanship behind this production. So can we have the AV, please?
From the farms of Punjab to your glass, Origin starts its journey. On board, fresh Kinao fruit, harvested by local hands. Carefully processed with precision, Origin captures the zest of Kinao. bottled with care and pride. Marketed locally, celebrated globally to share the flavor with the world. Each sip of Origin carries the vibrant essence of the land, smooth, zesty, and unmistakably original. For a gin like no other, there's only one name, Origin. Origin, taste the original.
Doing a blind taste test, regular or like blending water.
In terms of flavor and strongness, this is better.
That is better.
What is miracle?
It has been recognized by the Scottish Awards.
Wow. I'm actually surprised.
He tastes much better, the strong flavor, and also he feels very delicious.
Hey Chris, you wanna test the water?
Nah, man. Why deep it up when you can dive right in? Why take small steps when you know all the steps?
Why let things simmer when you can cook up a storm?
Whoa! Ha! You are on fire, chef.
So go, do something for the first time.
Or the 18th time.
Go somewhere you've never gone before.
Hello, everyone.
Why live life in half measures when you can live it to the brim?
All right, once again, let's have a round of applause, ladies and gentlemen. And with this, we are going to proceed further with our next session. So I request everyone to kindly be seated. For the next session, the topic will be Alcobev Industry, a committed partner to the Viksit Bharat agenda. Subtopics, investment revenue earner and employment generator. Innovation Make in India. Okay, and for this, I would like to call our moderator for the next session. So let's have a round of applause for Mr. Sanjeet Padhi, everyone. He's the Alcobev industry veteran and recently took over the charge of the International Spirits and Wines Association of India as Chief Executive Officer. He carries over 40 years of diverse experience to his new role, having held senior positions at prominent companies such as Sab Miller Asia and India, Escorts Limited, Diageo PLC and UB Group. Currently, he serves as a director at Advent Business Advisory Services Private Limited in Delhi. So next up, joining him, we have Mr. Ankur Sachdeva. So give it up for him, everyone. He serves as a senior officer at Elite Blenders and Distillers, bringing over 25 years of experience in the spirits industry. Known for aligning teams and resources, he previously worked at Radico Khaitan Limited, where he conceptualized the On Premier program and achieved strategic goals for the defense marketing division. Additionally, he played a key role in leading William Grant & Sons in South Asia, helping to establish the single malt Scotch whisky category in this region. Next up, we have Mr. R. Subramaniam. So let's have a round of applause. He's the Executive Director, Tax and Economic Policy Advisory Group, EY LLP. Over 20 years, he has gained wide experience in a diverse range of tax and regulatory issues, including developing and evaluating options relating to policy reforms and regulatory support in alcobev industry. Prior to joining EY, he has been responsible for managing corporate support affairs and public policy of a highly regulated alcobev business in India. And next up we have Mr. Sanjeev Vij. So let's have a round of applause. Okay, so he brings over 3 decades of expertise in public policy, corporate strategy and operations. Currently leading public policy at Diageo India, he focuses on taxation and regulatory matters. His diverse career spans sectors such as education, IT, hospitality and telecom, with key roles at Pernod Ricard, Vodafone, Reliance and Duncan's Group. Next up we have Mr. Neeraj Singh, so give it up for him. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, he's a seasoned leader with a strong track record in transforming businesses in the beverage industry. Currently leading public policy and with notable roles at Carlsberg, Red Bull, Dine Out and Brandco, he has significantly enhanced market share for iconic brands. As Chief Business Officer at Cartel Brothers, he leads strategies for the Glenwalk and Future Global labels, positioning the company for premium market expansion. His strategic foresight and expertise drive Cartel Brothers towards industry innovation and growth. Next up is Mr. Abhishek Parameswaran. So let's have a round of applause. He's the Chief Sales Officer at Now Spirits and Beverages Private Limited, leading the commercial strategy for 2 of India's foremost gin brands, Greater Than and Hapusa. With extensive experience in the alcobev, hospitality and FMCG sectors, he has been instrumental in driving growth for Now Spirits, both domestically and internationally. Prior to this, he held leadership roles at Remy Cointreau, Moët Hennessy and William Grant & Sons. And with that, last but not the least, Mr. Abhinav Jindal is going to complete our panel, so let's have a round of applause. The founder and CEO of Kimaya Himalayan Beverages, a beverage manufacturing firm established in 2018. He's a young dynamic industry professional with experience of over 20 years in the business of management consulting, liquor distribution and retailing and beer manufacturing. He launched his beer brand Be Young, India's first crafted strong beer offering a premium consumer experience, and in 2024 he introduced Be Young Brew Garden in South Delhi, a D2C microbrewery that blends traditional brewing with modern entertainment. So this is our entire panel for the second session. Let's have a round of applause once again, ladies and gentlemen. Over to you people. Thank you.
Good. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to this session. I was just looking around the panel and suddenly realized we have over close to 200 years of experience in the alcobev space, so that's a lot of experience here. More than that, I think I'd like to compliment Bishan for making sure that we've got a very nice mix of people here. You've got the Spiritz experts, you've got advocacy experts, and then you have the young man, Mr. Jindal from the beer industry, and then lots of new products, new innovation, etc. So I'm really looking forward to this session because I think it's very important for us to contextualize the fact that the alcobev landscape, since I started God knows when, and today has undergone tremendous transformation, especially in the last decade. And we are on the cusp of something very interesting, and if we manage it well, I think the topic which talks about Viksit Bharat, our path towards that can be a very, very interesting process and an interesting journey for all of us. Before we dive deep down into getting into more specific areas, let's set the context right, and just to give you the perspective, we as an industry are not small. I don't know how many of you know that the alcobev industry contributes over 3.40 lakh crores of revenue in the country. We are as high as 25% of the revenue collected by certain states. We employ, or we give direct employment to 70 lakh farmers cutting across various sectors. Around 9 lakh more people indirectly are involved with us. Apart from the farming community, I don't know, again, the fact that our contribution to the glass industry is almost 10,000 crores. So in terms of numbers, we contribute 22% of the total packaging industry in this country. So we're not insignificant. We're a very large industry. And I think the time has come for all of us to collectively work together, create a force that makes sure that we get the recognition from policymakers. And that's where I expect Mr. Subramaniam to also guide us as to how we can create a larger force to address us as an industry and our concerns. So let's just start off first, and I think the first thing which we can start off, and I will put this on into Sanjeev, because he's sitting next to me, it makes it easier to start. So Sanjeev, let's talk about employment generation and the way we as an industry generate employment in the context of direct and indirect, and more importantly in the retail space, where if you look at the number of outlets we have, and on an average of 5, we almost provide employment to 5 lakh people directly through our retail infrastructure. So how do you feel that we as an industry, from an employment perspective, can work and generate more employment?
Yeah. Good morning, everyone, or rather good afternoon, everyone, and thank you very much for that, Sanjeet. You spoke about Viksit Bharat. I think Viksit Bharat talks about a developed India in the centenary year of India's independence. And, today, I think when you look at it, employment probably is the biggest outcry that we see in India today that the politicians face. And I think the sector here is with all its backward and forward linkages, whether it is the agricultural sector or whether it is the hospitality, the food and beverage sector, and all the other supply chain sectors, like you spoke about the packaging industry and all, I think is contributing almost about 1.5% of the total employability in the country, which is about supporting about 79 lakh livelihoods is a figure that I came across, which is a tremendous contribution that this sector makes. And I think that's what we probably haven't highlighted it that much. And we need to probably speak more about it as a sector, more rather than, we talking individually as companies or one association here or one association there. Because I think that's a very, very huge contribution to the idea of Viksit Bharat that the government of India envisages. So I think the backward linkages, the forward linkages, and I think now with the advent of what we are trying to do in the innovation space, which is now creating more direct contact with farmers, especially for malt and all other types of grains and that we require for the innovation aspects, and the way we had in the earlier session, people spoke about luxury, and the way people are now interacting with the brands that we have to offer, which creates so many opportunities of creating more and more employment in the food and beverage sector, in the luxury space, and everywhere. So I think it's a tremendous opportunity that needs to be leveraged.
Thanks, Sanjeev. One of the biggest changes which have been seen by all of us in the last few years is the advent of what I call a march towards premiumization. And the premiumization has been driven by, obviously, socio-economic factors, rising incomes, exposure to choices, etc. And a lot of it is being driven by new categories. So would you like to speak, Aviv, on that, on new categories, and how do you see the new categories influence on premiumization?
I think for particularly talking about premiumization in an Indian context, and I think we touched upon it in the last panel discussion as well, it has always been a foreign, concept in terms of, okay, we're upgrading in life, so we must move towards foreign brands, and we must move towards, the single malt scotches or vodkas from outside and stuff like that. I think for a long time now, and it's been a considerable amount of time, the shift has been happening where people are saying, enough of having the stuff from outside, but we can create high quality spirits within India itself. And this includes indigenous spirits, which I think Mr. Sachdeva brought up as well, and as well as spirits that we have inherited. Let's say the concepts of what the classification of spirits is probably like 100 years old in India, but that's what we've inherited. I think the time is also to break out of that and start classifying our own indigenous spirits, and that premiumization aspect can then take on a very, very different shape. Because you're not then bound by these foreign regulations or about what classifies as single malt, what classifies as gin, so on. You're talking purely about then giving access to a consumer in India who might not be worldly wise or super connected, but has the amount of money or capacity to try the finer things in life. And the finer things in life might be a Mahua spirit. It might be something for him which is closer to home. And I think that's why we need to look at what the idea of a Viksit Bharat is for all of us. Is it to ape the West and to continue on that path? Or is it to create an India with a strong identity of its own? And that's where I think the premiumization aspect should move towards, and I think is moving towards, is people who are proud of what we create and what we stand for. And this is where I think it will be a very, very discernible shift from anywhere else, I would say, in the world. Maybe China is similar in some ways, because Baiju as a spirit is something which they do take to in a luxury context. But very few countries in our size and our capacity are able to actually say, let's go with what we create and not follow the West or follow what has been given to us before. And I think that's very important in this context. We produce gin, right? From my context, it is a foreign spirit. But we also understand there are things that are possible within India to make with an Indian context behind it. So for example, Hapusha is all about India, so on and so forth. When we made a rum, it was about finding how is it that India as a tropical country has not produced a rum of that quality or whatever it might be, because you see West Indies and you see, the various different tropical parts of the world which have produced high quality, all the appellations of the rum category. Within India, I think we have now started creating high quality spirits, even going past what has happened outside. So I think this is important, that we are able to surpass the quality of what is happening outside, plus focus on what we are producing within the country itself. So I think these are the two aspects we need to balance, and that's how we'll go towards that proper premiumization, and the Viksit Bharat agenda will actually take shape because of that.
Yeah, thanks a ton. I think whilst premiumization is a process, I think the key drivers also need to be identified. And I think it's all about young India, it's all about young entrepreneurships who thinking outside the box, and therefore their ability to connect to Gen Next, the ability to provide products which are exciting and of course linked to Make in India. What do you think has been the most important thing which has created this? Because products at the end of the day have to deliver on a promise. Forget the imagery, etc. But on the promise, what do you think has helped young entrepreneurs, new wave producers create a product which gels with the consumer? Yes, Neeraj, please.
So first, thank you so much for inviting all of us here. I would first like to touch upon what Abhishek was trying to say about premiumization. My take is a little different. For me, premiumization is, what we perceive of people, what they're looking for, before we try making a product for them. So our understanding on premiumization could be, there is a financial independence in a lot of people now, which probably wasn't there in past. There's a lookout of better spirits or alcohol because of the information access they have through social media on what is happening on the global scale in terms of trending products, could be the ingredients which are used to make those products. It is no longer you picking up a glass, just gulping it anymore. What we see now, people pick it up, see it, how good it looks, smell it, and then sip it, and then they react. So we understand premiumization with this particular perspective, that consumers are looking for premium products, but there's also an aspiration that we also sense in between. So we work on aspiration. We try to bring them closer to the premium choice they wish to make. And that's what the aspiration for us is. So that's how we launched our first product. I'm just taking a reference of that. Our commitment towards making a great product will always be there. But meeting the aspiration is our first vision that we created. Let's make great products which meet aspirations. So we are making extremely premium products. We're working on indicators very closely. We proudly call ourselves a data company which is into alcohol space. So we understand global trends. We understand what people are trying to shift to. What is their disposable income now? What could be their next choice of beverage in the next 3 years? Are we preparing it for right now or not? And what space should we enter? So that's how we look at it. In fact, we see a lot of companies also focusing on the same. I would not name anyone, but we see a lot of focus shifting towards premium spirits by the large giants in this space. And I think that is also an answer to what premiumization means to us, to the industry, and to people as well. Thank you.
Excellent. Neeraj, I'd just like to add on to what you said. And I think one of the biggest drivers of this process of premiumization is led by the changing retail landscape, which is building up an ambience, a shopping experience, the ability to have a choice, education. So getting into what you used to call the old theka, where you just walked in with the mind that I'm going to buy a rum, has now moved on into saying, I want to buy a product, a brand. And invariably you will realize that the shopping experience plays a very key role in driving sales of premium products. And where else but the city of Gurgaon? And if you look at the way the retail landscape has changed and the way the shopping experience. The other aspect which I think has played a very key role is the on-trade. The changing landscape of the on-trade has also worked very, very strongly because it's giving a set of drinkers again to walk into an outlet which is in line with their aspirations and have access to products to try out. Instead of having to buy a bottle, you can actually have smaller socializing, etc. The third, of course, is quality. You alluded to it. But I think what's happened is India has started getting access to quality and the way you make products. But more importantly is the mindset of us as a country to understand that quality is foremost in whatever you deliver. It's no longer the day when you could just, bottle a gin or a vodka and just deliver it to a consumer, put your price point in and say, this is the category, I will go and buy market share. It's no longer that. It's all about quality delivery coupled with great retail experience and on-trade experience. So, thank you. Ankur, you've had a very interesting career. You worked with international brands, you worked with domestic companies creating domestic iconic brands and in categories which have grown. In your mind, if we have to accelerate the pace of moving from where we are today towards where we should be by 2040, which is when we are supposed to be self-reliant. What is, from a brand product perspective, your views as to what do we need to do in the right way?
Thank you very much. Hello, everyone. It's a very broad question, but just to underscore where we are at today, India is the most populous nation in the world, as we all know, and yet we are 5th in the pecking order as far as the alcobev industry in India, vis-a-vis the globe. So the headroom is substantial. We can put the reasons down to per capita consumption, incidence of alcohol consumption, and so on and so forth. But safe to say that if we were to play catch up, we would very quickly climb on that ladder. So to your question, what can be done? I think you started off by saying that as an industry, we need to be taken more seriously. I think we do ourselves a little bit of a disservice by just limiting ourselves to alcobev industry. You hinted at the fact that how we contribute to the packaging industry. But to my mind, alcobev is a lubricant and a force multiplier that cuts across hospitality, tourism, and I'll go as far as to say entertainment as a whole. I don't know how this would sound, but I can't think of going out and having a good time without alcohol. So yet there are people who do it, so no offense there. But so I think alcobev industry has done well. We have come a long way, as you said, in the last 1 decade. But there is a long runway ahead. And interestingly, just to put that in context, internationally, I was reading a Jeffries report which said the US is currently looking at this is a new word for me, depremiumization. There, because of the challenges post-COVID, there was a frenzy, of course, but that has died down now and people are struggling with the cost of living. And people are actually coming down in that sort of price chain, as it were. Compared to that, there is no sign, thank God for that, there is no sign of any such thing or premiumization slowing down. The Euromonitor report that I saw earlier with the household discretionary and disposable income only going up to 2030, somebody said. So that's great news for all of us. I think we need to, you touched on quality, we need to stick to that. We need to continue to probe other categories. We need to, I think people talk about premiumization as if it just started. Premiumization has been happening for many, many years. And post-COVID, it was a necessity as opposed to a choice, because the cost of goods just kept going up, whether it was glass, whether it was ENA. For those of us who were managing large scale businesses, it was a nightmare during that time, because as we all know, our industry doesn't give price increases that easily. So we were looking at a situation where our margins were getting compressed. So premiumization was the only answer. Luckily, the consumer was ahead of us, and it forced our hand to cater to that. A lot of the innovation that you see today from the larger players has come as a result of it. As far as the new guys go, the startups that have come about to be, I think good they were not from the industry, so they didn't carry a baggage. They came with a new spirit. They were catering to their own age profile. They understood the trends, and they were first on the go. So kudos to that. I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Ankur. One very key point which you made that, and I think I will leave that when we come to Subbu and the way we look forward, is that the policymakers need to understand that investment in a sector is not limited to putting up a factory. Investment in the sector is about creating the market which will enable putting up a factory. Because without a market, you cannot put up a factory. And that is where one of the key things we as an industry should focus on is creating an environment where governments and policymakers realize that by allowing the industry to focus on building the market, i.e. pricing freedom, i.e. the ease of doing business, will actually be beneficial to not only the industry but to them to start with. Because statistics which I have seen in my last 3 months after I joined this role, a 1% shift in the mix in a large state adds on 500 crores in revenue. If you shift from the way the structure is, and there are many states where the majority of the revenue comes from the bottom end of the market. But if you just start shifting that towards, so there's a lot of scope for us to do that, and we'll deal with it when we, close it out. But more importantly, whilst we've been speaking about spirits, let's not forget that in the alcobev space, there is another major player, which is the beer category. And beer category has also seen a lot of innovation. I think it's seen actually a lot of dramatic innovation. So let's look at Avinav helping us understand what have been the innovation. How has he seen his journey in this period? Because he's created a very good, vibrant business.
Thanks, Sanjeet. Good afternoon, everyone. Beer, very interesting. Given the fact that it hardly contributes about 20% of the overall alcobev space. But where I started from was to look at a huge gap in terms of what the consumer wanted and what he was getting. 88% strong beer drinkers in this country, and nobody wants to be clicked with a strong beer bottle in his hand. I mean, that's a big problem. And yet everybody wants to have a beer that has sufficient kick at the end of the day. We, and not just we, I think a lot of people saw this opportunity and come out and brought in products that now resonate with a larger set of customers, where they feel that yes, you can have great beers without actually thinking about how much alcohol does it contain. It also helps that globally now you have a set of consumers now in India especially that has the awareness, also has acquired the taste and the knowledge which kind of helps in bringing out products which are not routine. For example, now you're not just restricted to a certain fermentation process. You're not just restricted to lagers. You're not just restricted to certain categories. So you have a host of companies experimenting with a lot of categories, varietals, ingredients. For example, we have a partnership now with Souffle Malteries, where we can actually trace back the barley that we use to the farm that it was grown in. So even at a craft level, you now have access to providers and suppliers where you can link your raw material to the final produce. So given the batch that you produce, you can go back and say, okay, this was the farm where my barley was grown. It helps. It kind of also brings forth the power of provenance that has so far not been utilized in this country. We're sitting on a big mine of provenance. Nowhere in the world you have the Himalayas. Nowhere in the world you have Rajasthan. Nowhere in the world you have the kind of climate that we have. The kind of agricultural produce that we can bank on. And somebody touched upon this, and I'm sorry I didn't remember, but the kind of barley that goes into a single malt or the rice. We've just launched a produce which uses which combines Belgian malts with Doon Valley rice. Now, we're sitting on a gold mine of provenance, and these provenance are already established as premium. So we don't need to go back and say, yaar, ki mujhe MP sharbati गेहूं का ही आटा चाहिए, right? So if you use that for a produce, it is already premium. You're already touching upon something that has established provenance. And this is where which I feel is where the future lies, not just for domestically sales, but for global standpoint. Gone are the days when you would look back and say, the whole Japanese single malt industry is standing on something similar, right? Glacier water, Japanese grain. This is something that I feel where especially the beer industry is standing at. This is a cusp where the consumer is now looking at some great new products which come with the provenance, the geographical provenance, and some great artisanal work. So exciting times ahead.
Excellent, Abhinav. So now we move to something which is very interesting. I'm sorry, so I'm keeping you to the last because you are going to play the most important role at the end. So just bear with me for a few minutes more. Some interesting numbers which I'll share with you. Our exports grew last year at 16%, but value-wise it grew by 20%, which obviously comes to us that we've transgressed from selling, I would say, products meant only for the Indian diaspora in, say, Africa, Middle East, etc., to now going really global. Now, the signs of a good, vibrant industry and growth of domestic business leads you to understand that we have arrived in terms of providing quality products acceptable into what we call more discerning markets. Another startling number, which I again would like to share with you, which many of you may not know, is that Indian single malts sell more than international single malts in India. Okay. First step towards Viksit Bharat. And the most interesting thing as a data point there is it's not cheaper than the international single malts. It's actually at par, if not more premium than others. So we've now reached a stage where I think our mindset again has moved, that we can do it. And for us to move towards self-reliance, as I said, whether it's in gin, or whether it's in single malts or providing better quality, you need first a mindset change, that I will not do things the way I used to do before. I think we can make good quality products, and I think you can market good quality products. So that's a very important data point for all of us. Whilst we were discussing, all of this is good. We've got a set of young, exciting entrepreneurs, the desire to create new products, etc. But the pace at which we can do will depend on two key drivers. The first is the ability of me to invest back into the business driven by regulatory framework changes. And the second is the changing retail landscape. If we do not accelerate the retail landscape in a very quick manner, which means more outlets, which is again a challenge, better quality outlets is the answer. And I think we need to work to that. So just setting the context right, we can say we've got the products, we've got the mindset, we've, as an industry, contributing very significantly to society and to providing opportunities for people. Our link to farm, from farm to factory to consumer, is very strong. So we've got all the right ingredients. A lot of us do a lot of work. I know CSR initiatives, giving back to society is extremely strong, and a lot of large companies. Our adaptability is extremely good. Our ability to adapt to what are called so-called Western norms, we've done it much faster if you look at the pace at which we have grown in other sectors. But Subbu, if I could call you that, please, from your perspective, and I think this is probably coming to the most critical driver, what do you feel are the important flex points from a regulatory framework which you think we need to address as a larger group to bring about this positive march forward?
First of all, thank you for having me, and being among the august house here, actually it will be a privilege for me to be part of it. So just to touch upon the points that you actually talked about. I mean, before getting on to this, I have 2-3 things that I need to talk about. See, I mean, these are the numbers that are published by your report some time back. Indian market is $54 billion approximate market, and of course we contribute. We means industry contributes 2% to the Indian GDP, right? You must be knowing that actually there are a lot of published reports across that by 2047 will be around $30 trillion in a conservative scenario. Imagine that actually where we will be actually by 2047. It will be around $600 million. That is effectively 12x of this number. 12x of this number. So to achieve the 12x of this number, what are the drivers that are actually going to happen? One, can that be increased per capita consumption? I'm not really sure that's going to happen. Can there be volume increase? See, I see the trend over a period of time. That's what actually you guys have also touched upon. Is the value increase is much higher than the volume increase. In fact, as a part of my state reviews in some of the states, I've actually done this analysis where I see this is common trend across. So where the value increase is much higher than the volume increase, and I see this trend continues. Then I realized we are all talking about premiumization as a subject for, I know this, I'm in the ministry for more than 10 years, I know that we've been talking about this. Is this just an option or is it a compulsion for this industry? When I say industry, government included in it for me. Because ultimately it's basically the government and the system with consumer, right? So I see this is, premiumization is a must-have, not just good to have. It is a compulsion for the industry and the government to achieve the targets. Premiumization, there is no alternative to premiumization. When you say what is premiumization, you may have different contexts of it actually. As a public policy consultant for some years, the way that I look at it is mainly from government perspective, of course, industry is there, is how much is the average recovery rate that the government revenue is going to increase on, or for the matter, what is the average MRP across, right? I see this trend in across. I did this analysis across in a 180 ml bottle kind of actually. It will be ranging from 90 rupees to 200 rupees per case, per bottle kind of. And this is increasing. States often actually they depending on the data analytics nowadays. It's also important that the industry to provide the data, relevant data. On this, how do we improve this number? Ultimately for you, premiumization is of course higher recovery rates and all, but ultimately that's the bottom line of it. Second, even the states also the same. It's basically to improve the higher recovery rates per case of sold, right? Per case. How do you do it? In fact, you touched upon the important point that I have actually written down. It's the retail experience. Ultimately, it's the retail. It's not just increasing the retail stores, it's the retail experience. How do we increase the retail experience? I mean, there are a lot of ways. I mean, you guys are experts, I don't need to talk about. But it's, my sense of it is actually currently the governments are echoing the same use. In fact, they're also on the industry side of it as we speak. Just that actually we, as industry, we need to give a data inputs to create a win-win situation. Win-win situation. I was talking to sir yesterday, Sanjeev sir yesterday, on what are the things that we can give to the industry, actually, industry to the government. Ultimately, it's about alternatives, quoting some of the examples in different states. We know 30 odd states are there. Each of the states can provide alternatives. Show to the government, this is winnable, this is how you need to win, this is how going to happen. I think that is something that as industry we need to engage and then give to the government, where I see that there is a improved effort actually of late, I see that. But there is still a scope for improvement, because at the end of the day, if Viksit Bharat has to happen, the only way for me is I don't say only way, that's one of the biggest one is premiumization. And for that to happen, I'm sure the governments are, while in different degrees, you can actually measure the government's response, but I see the pattern is in the positive way as we speak.
I'd just like to touch upon one point in this. Thank you. I think, as you mentioned, accessibility and getting access to the purchase of a bottle in India currently is through your on-premise and your off-premise, and that's it. Literally, the only touch points you can have are these two places. And by a measure of exponents, I think we are off in the off-trade. You have, for the same population, let's say take a standard size of population, which is what we're catering to, they will have 20 million grocery stores catering to that particular population. Whereas for a premium alcohol experience, they'll have 20,000 stores. So there is a massive difference in terms of what access we give our consumers from a regulatory standpoint, or like allowing them access to alcohol. So these are the kind of things that will make a shift. Once you start expanding that, giving more people access, opening up e-commerce, getting into things where you're giving responsibility to the consumer as opposed to schooling them, is when you start looking at consumers becoming responsible and starting that journey of premiumization within themselves as well. So overall, that, as you mentioned, 600 billion is a massive number, right? How do you get to 600 billion when you're starting off from very, very low numbers? So 50, 55. So it has to be something which has to be a concerted effort from both sides. And I think that's where it comes in. I think, as Sir said, it is and has been pointing towards a positive step in many states that we can see. And I'd just like to point out from my personal experience, having launched a couple of MNCs across India and set up their sort of companies from scratch, it's way easier to do that than right now where I am sitting with an Indian company. We face a lot more trouble right now than I would have faced 15 years in my life working with. So it is definitely a mismatch when it comes to what we are creating here versus what we bring into India. And I think that also needs to be balanced out. Agree on what we can do, cannot do in terms of regulation, that's fine. But it needs to be balanced out in terms of giving equal opportunity, equal access, and not putting so much red tape behind what we create in India.
Yes, I think so. You touched on a very important thing, market access and market, what I call invigoration through making accessibility easier, and that can happen through various interventions, which I'm sure amongst a group such as us, whether we as an association or the companies, we can work towards. Another thing which is important for us to make governments understand is that affordability also plays a key role. And let's not run away from the fact that sometimes many markets have priced products out of range, whether it be in beer or premium spirits. But the positives are they've started listening. And I think 2-3 indications will tell you in the last 3 years we've had Maharashtra relooking at pricing, or for example recently Karnataka, where they suddenly realized they were the second most expensive market in the country, and therefore their ability to sustain themselves both from external forces and internal generation of volume was severely compromised. So I think affordability is a very key factor, and we as an industry need to start working on that, because sometimes government becomes penny wise pound foolish. You know, they don't understand that the way you can raise revenues just by raising it by 10% or keep prices very high. So affordability is key. Sanjeev, you wanted to say something?
Yes, Sanjeev, basically Subbu sir spoke about premiumization, and I think the theme of the discussion is based around Viksit Bharat. So I think I just wanted to add a context to it. You know, 2028, India becomes a $5 trillion economy. It would be the third largest economy in the world, only after US and China. But why isn't the government then saying Viksit Bharat 2028? Why is it Viksit Bharat 2047? And I think the answer lies in the per capita income, which is still going to be much lower as compared to the other developed economies, and also some of the other intrinsic problems that we have. Keeping that in mind, I think that is where the government says that we are going to increase this per capita income and to a place. And it's not about the size of the economy, which is going to be $30 trillion maybe when 2047, the centenary year happens. It's about the per capita income, which probably we are talking about somewhere around $12,000 plus is when you get categorized as a developed economy. And that is where, as an industry, we need to understand the purchasing power. When the per capita income in the country is 12,000, Subbu said that premiumization is something which the governments will also require. I think it's the need in hour. The government understands its revenue only increases from alcohol when premiumization happens. But I think for the industry, it is to realize that the next 20 years or 25 years is a huge premiumization opportunity there. And that is where I think the industry then needs to go back to the government and start talking about it, because being 2% of the overall economy or the nominal GDP, and still having to do 10,000 interactions with government officials to run a plant in a year, I don't think so that's a proper matching.
Absolutely.
And that is where I think the focus of our discussions has to be with the government, whether it is exports, whether it is domestic industry, that how do we minimize this aspect to leverage premiumization, which is going to be the biggest beneficiary not only for the industry, but this is the only way the governments can think of continue to increase revenue or maximize revenue from this sector.
Thanks, Sanjeev. Just to add on to what you just said, I think the government and overall basis, as far as I now call the alcohol business, not the alcohol business, has also started putting in levers which will drive per capita up. Just a number for you, maize, which was at 16 rupees a kilo last year, is now officially trading at 22, and with demand. It's just not something which is speculative. Sowing of maize has gone up by 30%. That's the expected harvest output this year. Now, what I'm trying to allude to here is that we as an industry are actually also helping farmers become richer, because we are translating farm income growth by 50% is huge. You will move away from traditional rice and wheat into less water guzzling crops. So I'm just trying to explain to the group here that we as an industry touch many more lives than just making people feel happy. It's all about providing revenue generation. It's all about providing employment, especially in rural India. So there's some good things happening. You wanted to say something?
On a fact, probably the liquor industry would be the largest food processing industry by category. And I'm sure we've touched on a lot of data points, but given the fact that the amount of farmers who are directly linked to this industry, and as you rightly pointed out, every input that we use has seen a massive increase over the last, not 10 years, but probably the last 3 or 4 years, especially barley, rice, and any other input like maize that has gone into the production. What is the need of the hour is also a look at for the same Viksit Bharat agenda, the kind of contribution you make. A lot of states making up to 20% of their revenue from the alcohol taxes overall. Is to give its due. A bigger factor is accessibility. This accessibility, not just in terms of the price point, but also in terms of better availability, an easier regime to give access to production facilities that allow people to consume better products, these products to reach markets without barriers, a sort of a unified regime where I don't have to pay 100 rupees for a product in Delhi but pay 200 rupees in Bangalore, and have a shock. There have been instances where I buy a bottle of let's say a beer in Delhi for 100 rupees and then pay 300 rupees in some other state. This is something that we need to look at. Also, what we need to look at, the contribution of this industry and the amount of times that these input costs, for example, the GST, can actually come back and get reinvested into the business. It'll actually add more value to the government when this all of the money then recirculates within the industry and comes back and gets reinvested. I have seen states now looking at or realizing that how unaffordable they have made, for example, beer. I've seen Uttarakhand, for example, taking a rain check on beer prices a few years back. But again, it's preposterous for a bottle of beer to cost 3 times or 4 times or 5 times a bottle of Coke. And then we lament, oh fuck, this industry is not growing at the level where it should have grown. The per capita consumption is probably the lowest anywhere possible in the world. We've just not made it accessible enough. And the potential lies in the fact that if we just allow it to prosper, we just allow it to be, it will be at a much larger scale than what it is today. So yes, given the fact that where we are, if the governments were to look up and then say that yes, we are willing to just bring down the barriers a bit, make it a little more easier, things can look different.
You want to say something? Yep.
Thank you very much. I think he's triggered a point, and I've been in this industry for almost 25 years, and where we are today is really a testament to the resilience of the industry and individual entrepreneurs. This is a capital-intensive industry, and no disrespect to some of you sitting here representing maybe some part of the government, but I think we have gotten to this point not because of the government, but despite the government. I will say this, that in this position where we are at, and this industry took a hit to the chest during COVID. On-premise accounts were blown out of the air, absolutely. Many of them haven't bounced back ever. So many F&B professionals were displaced, and unlike in the West, there was no help towards them, not even from the financial institutions, not from the government, none whatsoever. But we are at this point. It's quite amazing and speaks volumes of this industry and the individual enterprise. Now the point is that what's the government doing to nurture this goose that lays the golden egg? And I don't see that very much. Even right now, the definition of premiumization, different people will look at it differently. But premiumization is not just being able to charge a higher price to the consumer. I disagree. Because if all that additional money is going in terms of revenue to the government, then that's not really premiumization, is it? Okay. Some statistic suggests, I think it was a report from SY only, where every rupee generated in sale at the counter, some 30 odd paisa goes to the government coffers. So if that's the, if that proportion is sacrosanct, or if there is a mechanism in which we can put, and again, I'm saying something with very broad brushstrokes. Not all states are the same. Some states are better than the others. Some are more conducive, some are less. But by and large, I feel there should be some kind of a joint task force which puts together a self-imposed model or code of conduct on both sides. Annually, we shouldn't have to go and beg and make a case for price increases to the state government when it's a reality. It's government published figures of inflation, and therefore price increases should be inflation indexed, and so on and so forth. Approvals, policies for a industry that contributes to many states 1/3 of their direct revenue, direct and indirect revenue. We're not exactly treated well, is the point I'd make, and I think it's time somebody made a start. Thank you.
Thank you. I think we've had a very wonderful, lively discussion, convergence of most of the points. I totally agree with Ankur that we need to focus on the ease of doing business. It's a very broad term, but it starts from just not getting label approvals within a specific period of time and not 3 months or 6 months, which is probably the most easiest or the most mundane. But, if there are 101 approvals and many of them today are technically not relevant, then we need as an industry body to start working with governments. I will tell you that we've made a lot of progress. Cutting down on systems and processes in some of the states has happened. To give the government the due, they understand that. Certain states, and I think you all know, you've been in the market, it's become good, but we still got a long way to go. So ease of doing business has to come along. Any industry, for it to improve, has to have an ease of doing business index at the best possible number you would like to do that. So there's something called PRAP, which I'm sure you all understand. There is a need to drive it down at various states. But I think I'll talk to something which Subbu said before I end. I think it's been like two different sides of the fence. Somebody who sees you as a golden goose, and you see them as defining your destinies, because without them you cannot even move a step forward. But I think the two need to understand that we mutually bring a lot of benefit. And I think the position of advocacy needs to change from just going and saying, I want a price increase. Of course we want a price increase. But I want a stable business environment. I want an easy to operate business environment. I want a sustainable model. For us to survive, we seem to tend to look, is saal humko kya milne wala hai? Actually, it's not that. It's, can I be there 5 years in a much better place than I am today? So, I think that's the way forward. And let's, stop there, because I think we've reached our time slot. And I would now request and keep there you are, Neeta, the first.
I think you were expecting it. No, but honestly, thank you for a very enriching discussion. I don't have a question, but I have a suggestion to you. And all of you are aware that when the industry comes together, there are significant changes that we have achieved. So I'm not going to list that. But you have Subbu sitting here, and we are talking about Viksit Bharat. I think the industry collectively must have its own Viksit Bharat report. When we create a combined own Viksit Bharat report, we will be able to reach to the tables that matter. Because I can at least share, not in confidence, openly, it's an open secret that the bureaucrats are looking for a new narrative from this industry. Even they can actually in their sleep tell me 5 points that you all have discussed. Inflation, ease of doing business, accessibility, retail, right, and price increase. What's the 5th, 6th, 7th? So it's time to look at a fantastic collective new narrative for this industry. The power of coming together under how Alcobev sees a Viksit Bharat, which means that kind of a narrative to say the power, the control, the value chain, the end user, that is what we control. And this kind of messages or a report or a paper or a discussion or a dialogue or a podcast is the need of the hour. So I just thought I'd kind of leave this suggestion with industry leaders here. I can always happily help to pitch in also, but jokes apart, I think seriously consider this. Thank you.
Thank you, Neeta. I think a very, very valid suggestion, because we at Diageo did create a document on Viksit Bharat, Diageo's contribution. And I can say without saying the name that when we took it across, and a very important aspect of Viksit Bharat is not only economics, it's also about sustainability. And when we took that document to one of the very senior cabinet ministers in the government of India, he said, oh, you do so much work with the farmers. That was the reaction. So I think what Neeta is proposing is something very, very valid and very, very important, that the industry needs this narrative badly to reach out and probably open certain minds towards what this industry is actually contributing.
I think just to quickly touch upon one thing we discussed about the export side of things and about the narratives that come into play when you're looking at India from an external lens. When India has always been thought of as a country which produces low quality spirits and so on and so forth. Now we genuinely, when we go out to our 23, 24 countries, when we are selling our brands or making them taste our brands or whatever it might be, and I see it happening for Indian single malts and for lots of other brands, there is a genuine astonishment about, okay, this is what India is capable of. You know, that kind of thing, which for us, I mean, don't patronize us, we can do this, we know how to do this, but at the end of the day, it's also a great thing for the governments to understand that a country like Scotland is famous across the world for its whiskey. That's what it's primarily known for. A state of Goa can become famous for its spirit. A country like India can become famous for multiple spirits. So there is a genuine narrative, spiel there as well, which can come into play, which is sort of about the soft power of India when it comes to going out in the world as well.
Thank you, Abhishek. Thank you. I think absolutely correct. And I think you've just further re-emphasized the fact that we can produce great quality products. And I think the Western world has started recognizing it. And I think consumers' acceptance of our products, and we have unique positioning, be it an Indian craft gin, because as you know, gin is synonymous to India. Very few people know that. It's actually synonymous to India. So, good. If there are any more questions, we'll be more than happy to take them. Or we can move into lunch, which is always a good idea. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thanks, Sanjeev.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ankur. Thanks. Thanks, Sanjeev. Thank you, Abhishek. Yep.
All right, thank you so much everyone for that wonderful session. Now I would like to call Shalini ma'am on the stage to present a token of appreciation for all our esteemed panelists. Can we get the hampers? Right, congratulations everyone with this once again. We would like to thank Estuary Water for these wonderful hampers. All right, once again, let's have a round of applause for the wonderful session which we had. Thank you so much. And now is the time for lunch. So we are going to resume at 3, and I request everyone to be here at 2:45. At 3 o'clock, we are going to get started with the next session. So once again, I'll request everyone to be back here at 2:45. Thank you.